welcome back. We're still discussing the race between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to clinch the Democratic nomination. Our guests are also still with us. In Doha, Scott Bates. In Washington, D.C., Maya Rockeymoore. And in London, James Boyes. Miss Rockeymoore, is there a general feeling amongst Obama supporters that Hillary Clinton refusing to concede defeat is just holding up the party and holding up this trend of possible victory?
There is that general feeling, not only among Barack Obama supporters, but also apparently among Hillary Clinton supporters. We recall that this past weekend, the Democratic National Committee Rules Committee met to resolve the fate of the votes that happened in Florida and the election in Michigan. And what we saw, interestingly enough, was a split in the Hillary Clinton supporters. There were those who wanted to fight till the end, certainly represented on that panel, but there were those who were willing to compromise. And so those who are willing to compromise certainly also agree that Hillary Clinton's campaign needs to wind down so that the nominee can focus on the general election and John McCain. Everyone agrees, most people agree, that John McCain right now is getting a free pass. This is critical time that the nominee will need in order to launch his campaign against John McCain in the fall.
James Boyes, I just want to step back for a second out of this race as to who's going to win or who's going to lose, because central to any campaign is the issue of policy. I wonder, are their policies, both Obama and Clinton, are their policies not very similar at this moment in time? Have their policies or their approach to policy on certain issues not come closer as this race has gone along?
Well, it's very interesting, of course, as an international observer of American politics, to consider the very question of policies, because traditionally, of course, the idea of policy being central to the art of the politician seems pretty straightforward. And yet, time after time in American politics in particular, we've seen the idea that actually the politics is about the personality. So I would suggest to you that despite the many policy issues which are, or at least should be on the table with regard to this election, be it the economy, be it the war in Iraq, or a whole series of other issues, I suspect that fundamentally there will be a high degree to which this election will come down to one of personality and almost certainly therefore of experience. I think you'll have Obama trying to push a question of personality, pushing his family, his youthful vitality, and John McCain trying to push the levers of experience, very much trying to counter the idea that he's too old for the job by stressing his years in the Senate, his war record, very much in contrast to that of his young, youthful opponent, Barack Obama.
Scott Bates, what's your view on this? Amid all the showbiz surrounding the personality of all the candidates, do you think that the actual issue of policies has been relegated to the backseat?
Yeah, so far the media gets a lot of credit or blame for this, because it definitely has been perceived as a battle of personalities, at least in the Democratic contest. There are some policy differences when you talk about Iraq and timetables for leaving. There's a difference there between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama about the decision to go to war, about health care plans, but those really haven't been dwelt on. The media loves to have a horse race between candidates, and as long as this Democratic race continues, that's where the focus is. So the differences, that's where it hurts Obama. He's not able to start making policy differences clearly with McCain. He's trying to do that in essentially ignoring Hillary Clinton, but again, the media is more interested in covering the actual horse race in the Democratic race.
Well, Mr. Bates, do the Democrats have to make up their mind by the end of this week, or expect a clear defeat to the Republicans?
You know, I think actually that Democrats could wait a bit longer, but there's definitely a rush right now for ultimate judgment on this race. You have when this race was lost now in retrospect for Hillary Clinton is when she allowed Howard Dean to become chairman of the Democratic National Committee. I went through the list of 30 people that decided how Michigan and Florida delegates should be allocated, and there were a lot of Dean ringers in there. And Barack Obama absolutely appeals to that Howard Dean base. So in retrospect, she's going to look back and say, gee, I let that one get away. So yes, Howard Dean and the Democratic establishment and the elite media, I mean, the New York Times for the last 2 months has been running the same story with different variations about when is Hillary getting out of the race. So they've essentially ignored a lot of the electoral victories she's gotten, and they've focused on the delegate count. So I think that that combination is probably going to be enough to close this race out pretty quickly.
Ms. Rocky Moore, amongst yourself and other Obama supporters, is the idea of a brokered convention even the remotest possibility?
I actually don't think it's going to get to that point. I think that there will be enough of Hillary Clinton supporters and Barack Obama supporters to decide that that is not the way that this should go. Certainly, we know that congressional leaders on Capitol Hill, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, have basically gone on record to say that it would be a disaster for the Democratic Party if it actually came down to a broker convention. But I actually want to get back to the question of public policy, because I actually think that when it comes to the general election, we will actually see a striking conversation about public policy. The differences between Barack Obama and John McCain are vast, and many people are actually painting John McCain's candidacy as a third term of the Bush White House. He has certainly indicated that he is in favor. He has been in support of the war from the very beginning. He is in favor. He has recently come down and said that he would draw down troops in several years, but he has indicated that, you know, perhaps we could be there for as long as 100 years. So there are certainly massive differences. There are also differences with regards to the economy. As you know, the American economy is not doing so well, and John McCain has actually indicated that he doesn't know anything about the economy. And so there are policy proposals that would put more money in the pockets of American citizens that are on the side of Barack Obama, and he is very different from John McCain in that regard. So I think that a broker convention would definitely be a disaster, because Barack Obama needs time in order to make these policy distinctions. It's not about the personality, I think, in the general election. It's going to be about policy.
James Boyes, as we've seen, the Democrats employ a proportional system with regards to votes and delegates. This has come under scrutiny. It's one of the reasons we're discussing this. Do you think that the Democratic Party is at a crossroads?
Well, I do certainly agree with our guest from Doha that a critical error was made in the selection of Howard Dean to chair the DNC, and this idea of using the proportional representation system has seen to be chaotic at best and misguided at worst. I think that perhaps if you don't have this system, you may well have had a candidate at this point. Democratic politicians and the party in general are not necessarily known for their high degree of organizational skills, unfortunately. And I think what we're seeing generally is a lack of leadership. The American people are going to be asked very shortly to decide who it is they want to lead their nation. And at the moment, I think they must look at the Democratic Party agog and think, well, you know, usually we are a miss for one strong candidate. Now we have two candidates who, for want of a better reason, are appealing to different parts of America, but we're seeing no leadership to step in and say, right, this needs to end now. Neither Reid nor Pelosi, for example, seem to be stepping forward and saying, right, let's draw a line under this and move forward. For years, of course, we've looked forward to an interesting convention. There have been coronations for too many years. We seem on the verge of a potential interesting nomination process at the convention. I don't think it's going to go to the brokered convention, as I would have predicted a few weeks ago. But that certainly would have made life interesting, although not necessarily extended the process any longer than it need be, because, of course, it would have all been wrapped up within the timescales to suit the television cameras anyway, I think.
Scott Bates, James Boyes mentioned two very strong candidates for the Democratic Party. Are you of the opinion that the only way the Democrats are ever going to get to the White House is, no matter what, if these two work in tandem?
Well, I think that's right. Hillary Clinton has to get out the women's vote. That's a key component. And there are some older women that might have some trouble seeing a young guy come up and take this away from someone that they see as having paid their dues. So, yeah, she's going to have to get out on the trail and help them and turn her money machine over to Barack Obama as well. So, yeah, there's going to have to be a very high degree of cooperation, because I have to tell you from where I sit, actually, you look at the industrial states Democrats need to win, the polling right now is close to neck and neck. So, sure, if you look at national polls, a lot of of people in New York and California love Barack Obama, but the point is the Electoral College. And right now, he's behind by 8 points in Florida. And that, as a Democrat, that worries me. This is going to be a very hard campaign, a very close campaign. It's either going to be very close or it could be a blowout, but I think it's going to be very close indeed.
Maya Rockeymoore, there's only about 45 seconds left on the program. As an Obama supporter and a Democrat, would you be happy to see Obama as president one day and maybe Hillary Clinton as his vice president?
I would be very happy to see Barack Obama as President of the United States of America. I think he'd do a very good job in that position. It is going to be up to Barack Obama to decide who his vice presidential candidate will be. Certainly Hillary Clinton is a formidable candidate, and certainly she would be considered. And so it's going to be interesting to see who he decides on. I should just make an amendment to what Scott said. Barack Obama may be down in Florida, but that might be because he didn't campaign there because of the Democratic Party rules. So we need to understand that this is an exciting election. It is the first in many respects, and I think that America is going to be very pleased with the outcome if Barack Obama wins in November.
Well, we'll all be watching the race very closely. Scott Bates in Doha, Maya Rockeymoore in DC, and James Boyes in London. Thank you all very much for joining us here on this discussion, and thank you so much, the viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye-bye for now.